Warning, the following is a thing that I've just thought up of basically from just thinking, brainstorming. None of it is factual, and I delve into things that most people wouldn't feel comfortable talking about, and that's the exact reason why I chose to do it in public. There are two terms that I've like to use the opposite end to better understand and not compensate for the better meanings in life. And precaution, they are a bit sinister, nonetheless are more real than a fuzzy number set, which is slow as death and no chance in hell. What would be the rudest math question you can think of? And it's in line with what came first, the chicken or the egg, where it's kind of sad because not everyone can get a tombstone. But if everyone's alive forever, how many things would run out first? The rocks on Earth making tombstones, or people being more than the tombstones and not being able to have one? That is, of course, you would need one hell of a dummy variable to put in between to kind of teeter all the nuances between that vector of a cloud and a nuclear warhead. That, my friends, would be a Bluetooth, and that is one heck of a dummy variable, given that soundscapes make up the aftermath of motion. And motion, in a mechanical sense, can be discrete if it's in a bottomless pit, if you think it is an echo chamber. Something as nonchalant as cloud computing, when doubled with something exuberant and like gigantic as nuclear warheads, a cloud and a nuclear warhead, if you used a blackmail, and blackmail goes in line with like the darkness and evil, where it has no limit because it's a bottomless pit, you very well may combine material and binary in that vector of a discord. Maybe the permissibility, how permeable objects are, is within the gradation of the fine scaling, if it'll even work in the first place. You can have all the right ingredients, but if the makeup of each ingredient is only like half of what it should be, it's gonna take away from the end result entirely. The end result entirely could be devised by legions of women who do nothing but stare into mirrors for objectivity in accounting for how well light bounces off certain squares. Now, I just said that because the first time I've heard of such a thing was from a female scientist, and lo and behold, her job was detecting how photons bounce off of small transparent glass. And this is in the line of quantum electric dynamics. And so she was nothing short of an example of how gradation would occur if maybe that's not just the material needing the permittability, but light indeed being an advocate of a certain frequency and timing as well. When harvesting, the plants, they open and close with light detection because they're attuned to the sun up, sun down, and the more you rewire that cycle, especially when it comes to the season's end and it gets colder, you're going to be playing with the gradation on scales that could make or miss an entire ingredient, let alone each ingredient having their own permissibility for faulting in certain factors. How similar is Bluetooth to the cloud? See, I don't know the cloud that well, so I have a hard time thinking of it. And so in trying to intertwine both together, there's been two moments where I've thought that there has been the intertwining of things that had great information, probably of one of the two subsets. In the game Need for Speed, you can gain access points through driving close to someone, and then you get bonus points because you're correlating almost like a symmetry as your propulsion of the speed is in sync, almost as Brownian motion would have it. And then I drove really close to someone who was smoking a cigarette, and the information what he was being blown from, I think, matched the same inert ability as I was driving by. And I kind of felt his tolerance of what he was going through. And then the second one has to do with blow drying my hair. And I don't blow dry my hair, but I was going incognito, meaning I didn't want my hair to look wet in front of one person, so I was going incognito. And so when I did that, I felt that there was like this grease on my scalp, and I was blowing it with the hair dryer, and it was kind of just like drying it superficially, and it felt good because the grease was like getting burnt by the hot air. And I think that that's like a super cure, and it's curing well. And so another side note, when people are wearing masks and others are getting gussied up, like with blowing their hair, or you know, like dressing up and stuff, it's kind of disgusting because you shouldn't like fancy up beating a dead horse, especially if you're dressing a dead horse. You shouldn't be addressing it by beating it up, let alone dressing it before you beat it up. You know, sound design and scripting aren't too far-fetched from each other. It's not a stretch to go one from the either, especially in codec of networking bridges to nodes. Over my right shoulder is a netting, and the foliage is the same color, and they're both dehydrated. At what length would a net become a foliage if paper is what netting is ribbed as under ropes, whereas paper is not far from roping, as they are made both from the same tree material. You know how animals have things that we don't? Perhaps it's from the uses of glands. When adaptations of poison and venoms, what if that adaptation specifically is when the glands are first initiated? Along with webbing and other things, those are glands that are initiated. The best things that we have are Bluetooth and the cloud, where you don't need to carry around a external hard drive or thumb drive if you have it in the cloud. Or with Bluetooth, you don't have to have cords everywhere if you have Bluetooth. Why can't they be the same thing? So that if there were glands that could make venom, and then a gland that could make a spider web, crossing them over would be the venomous spider web, of course. But what would a Bluetooth cloud encumber? Maybe the sound design of scripting. I watched a kid show Benjamin the Tiger's Neighborhood, and he got shots, and they had these clips where it was showing other kids going and getting shots and not to be scared. The next episode was him explaining to his friend, when you're scared, close your eyes. And then when I saw that they were thinking happy thoughts, I saw this like one woman, and she was like closing her eyes all the time. I didn't know if she was blind because the envelopes over the eyes were pretty well defined. Look at this guy. Would a tick be looking like that? Like if eye sockets are well defined and that lids are shut, it could mean that the person's blind. And an abdomen of a spider, how big it is, could maybe induce the glands in it if it has more specifically. Understanding the difference of absolutes and infinities, you're able to deduce things that would seem niche, but could possibly just be the difference from an allergen versus a bad growth from an agricultural deficit or defect. Peppering is an adjective, and when you do something a lot, and it's coated with it, they're saying like it's peppered with it, it's being applied. And how many things are in contention with the following? I'm prone to a stroke. Well, how many people are prone to that, given that if you pepper anything enough, it's going to have the non-biased effect where it's inevitable. Especially in a blockchain or watermarks. These are things that are coding when it comes to computer science, but more importantly, your body's allergen system applies to these things in a physical manner. My stance on life is that I don't want to digest something if it's living, well then you'll say, plants, don't they plant life? Yeah. But to what extent is the difference of a plant to an animal, as no one really has that clear, concise. When you say like no animals were hurt in the making of a video, but then I feel perfectly comfortable doing this. Some X-rated